Good day, good afternoon, or morning, or whenever you happen to join us for this devotional, wherever you are, whether you're up in the north or the Midwest, or whether you have a full gas tank or an empty gas tank. I'm glad that you're joining me right now for this devotional. And Sarah and I have been started reading through the book of Psalms, and it's so interesting. David wrote many of the Psalms. There were other contributors, but David wrote the majority of the Psalms. And the Psalms are divided into basically five sections or five books. The Hebrews looked at it as five separate books, and we've combined all five in as five sections of one book called Psalms. And they are songs. They are meant to be sung. It wouldn't sound very good in English. It's set up to be sung in the Hebrew language with Hebrew rhythms and so on. But we can certainly understand the truth that each psalm gives us. And Psalm 4 is one of those psalms that David writes, and things aren't going so well for David. Whatever is happening, we don't know the exact circumstance, but there are people who are against him, and they're speaking against him. There are bad things going on, and this is picking up on the theme from last week's devotional. This helps us understand that all of the biblical characters that we read about, whether it's Abraham or Jacob or David or Isaiah or Daniel or Paul or Jesus himself during his time on the earth, they're real, and life hasn't stopped for them. They are still having to cope with circumstances that are often dire, and they're regular people, and they have to respond to circumstances just exactly the way you and I do. And we use cars today instead of chariots, motorcycles instead of horses and mules. But nevertheless, our circumstances are emotionally quite similar. And David reminds those who will sing this psalm, inspired by the Holy Spirit, that if our joy and our sense of peace and well-being are based on current circumstances, then our joy will be transient. It'll always depend on what circumstances are going on in our lives. And so if the circumstances are good and positive, well, we'll feel joy and peace. But if our circumstances are troublesome, difficult, then true joy and peace will elude us. And we'll be filled with anxiety and concerned about things that we really can't control. And so David writes this psalm, and I want to read parts of it to you. And he picks up this in verse 4, and he says, "Be angry and do not sin." In other words, it's okay to experience real emotion about whatever's happening in your life. We're real people. God created us in his image, which is the ability to feel emotion. We aren't automatons. We aren't androids. We are real people. And so we are going to feel emotion. And David says, well, okay, be angry, but do not sin. Instead, ponder in your own hearts, in the quietness of your own mind and your own soul, on your bed, and be silent. In other words, listen for the Lord. Offer right sacrifices and put your trust in the Lord. In other words, there is a sacrifice to offer to the Lord. And David, being who had the law in his hands, there were many different kinds of sacrifices to be made under the Old Testament law. You and I, in the New Testament, the only sacrifice that we are urged to make sure that we do is described in Romans 12, verse 1, that we consider ourselves a living sacrifice, that we ourselves are bringing ourselves to the Lord, to the feet of the cross, to the foot of the cross, and we are saying we belong. We are sacrificing ourselves, our emotions, our body, our hands, our feet, our aspirations, our dreams. We're bringing all of those, and we're placing them at the foot of the cross as a sacrifice to the Lord. And whatever He does with that, that's His business. We have given Him ourselves, and so whatever He brings into our lives, whatever He does in our lives, that's His business. And so David says, put your trust in the Lord, make your sacrifice, and for us it's being a living sacrifice. And then we trust God for whatever He brings into our life, that He knows what He's doing, and He's going to bring into our lives exactly what we need at the moment to experience Him, or to learn what He wants us to learn, or to serve where He wants us to serve. And he goes on to say, there are many. In other words, those who don't have this mindset will say, who will show us some good? And in other words, he's anticipating that some people will go, well, that's not enough. I want good circumstances. I want things to be calm and kind to me. And so who's out there that's going to show us some good? And instead, David says, instead of that, you have put more joy, talking to the Lord, Lord, you have put more joy in my heart than they have with their grain, when their grain and their wine abound. I'd love that. And he says, God, you've put more joy in my heart during difficult times than those who are asking for good circumstances receive when they have a full barn full of crops, and their vineyard is producing lots of grapes, and their wine vats are full. They get joy from those circumstances. But God, you put more joy in my heart simply because you walk with me, and you draw me to yourself, and we have this close relationship. And he goes on to say, in peace I will both lie down and sleep. For you alone, O Lord, make me dwell in safety. For you alone, O Lord, make me dwell in safety. And so it really is a difference in mindset. If I look at the political situation here in the U.S., and I'm not going to have joy or peace unless it goes a certain way, then my joy is going to be transient, and it's all related to things I can't control, because we can vote, and we can let our desires be known. We can even protest, but we ourselves, we aren't going to change that much. It takes the votes of the populace, and so God is going to take the populace wherever He decides to, and to do whatever, to get done on the earth whatever He wants to get done through the United States of America. So we need to stay active and stay involved, but we can lay aside all those things that take away our joy and our peace. And instead, we focus on what God's doing in our lives, in the lives of our children, our grandchildren, and what He's teaching us about Himself, and reading His Word, like Psalm chapter 4, and and to dwell on exactly what David is saying. Make my sacrifice to the Lord and put my trust in Him. And there were times in David's life where putting his trust in the Lord meant that he was turning away from doing things with his own sword, and instead trusting the Lord to guide and direct, and to change circumstances if God so chose to change those circumstances. And because of that, then he was able to walk with God. When we trust God, we're able to walk with Him. We really can't have a close relationship with someone that we don't trust. And so God is through David is saying, I really am encouraging you to trust me. Because if you trust me, then you and I can have this relationship together. And I'm going to speak to you through your word, through my word. I'm going to speak to you as you read and study or hear messages. I'm going to speak to your heart. I'm going to change your life. And I'm going to give you a sense of joy And also, when you lie down to rest, I'm going to give you peace. And so instead of anxiety and frustration, you're going to have peace and joy. And I know you're not living in a perfect body and in perfect circumstances. I know that there may be things that will go wrong today or tomorrow. But God is the same. His love for you and his invitation to trust him is the same, whether the circumstances are difficult or are smooth sailing. And that's what David is trying to tell us, that I've put my trust in the Lord, and so I have peace at night. When I lay down to rest, I really do have peace, and I get true rest. And that's my prayer for you today, that you'll operate on that basis of the New Testament and considering yourself a living sacrifice to the Lord and giving him permission to do whatever in your life that he wants to do. And then to trust him without outcome. Whatever he brings into your life, to trust him. And I can guarantee you that God will put a joy in your heart that far transcends anything this world has to offer. Far transcends the joy that someone else might feel in winning the lottery. That walking with God produces a deep, innermost joy and peace that really nothing on this earth can equal or come close to. So let's determine this week that rather than looking at the COVID statistics or the political intrigue or what's going on in Israel, that we will simply trust the Lord and put ourselves in his hands, give him permission to do whatever in our lives he chooses to, and then to trust him and walk with him and enjoy being in his presence, enjoy putting our hand in his hand and trusting him to walk along with us. So God bless you. And I know circumstances can sometimes be dire. And I hope that my prayer for you is rather that in these circumstances, whatever you are experiencing, that in them you will really be aware of the presence of God in your life and trust him implicitly. So God bless you. Have a great week, the rest of this week, and we'll see you next time or this coming Sunday. God bless.